are live here. Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Shoes off the bed. Meg, we listened to you. Meg yelled at me last time I had my shoes on the bed. But
Honestly,
I've got...
mood. No shoes on the bed.
Yeah. Well, either way, we're here laying it down with Big D, and I am joined by one of my good friends and colleagues here in the North American casting space, Floofys. Floofys, how are we doing this morning?
Oh, pretty good. Got up a little while ago. Just been, made sure to get nice and fresh for my interview. Gotta, put on. Been really enjoying this shirt. Had to make sure I had proper hat for the interview, and might already be wearing glasses, but you can never be too sure.
Yeah, you can't be too prepared. God, those noggles are so sweet. For those of you that don't know, Floofys is a Nouns caster. He works directly with Nouns, which we were briefly talking about before we started recording. Okay, holy cow. How many high can you go? How many pairs of noggles have you got? Oh my God, the triple stack. That's insane. Okay.
I have 3.
That's the... Can you actually see through those things?
Not really.
I can see that there's a vague like shade effect on them that...
Like this part I can kind of see through. This is too dark. But like my eyes are bad enough. I'm gonna actually we're gonna drop back down to 1 here. And I'm gonna save that for later. That was a good throw. So
did it land right where you wanted it to?
Kinda, yeah. Oh well, it fell back behind the bed. Not so good anymore. So
Damn, it's because you talked about it.
my left eye is a whole lot better than my right eye. My right eye, if I close my left eye, even with glasses on, can barely see. And that's something I've had for years. And so because of that, with the noggles, I can barely see. It's pretty tough.
So if you're partly blind already, noggles are not actual prescription glasses, is what you're telling me.
No, but one of the cool things Nouns has funded is glasses for kids. So it's just like, yeah, we're gonna make the noggles without the effects on them, and they have prescription lenses in them.
Just wanted to make sure we're recording on my phone here. Well, we are, just so in case you were worried as well. Now, are those prescription glasses, do they put them in noggles?
I think so. I would have to go back and look at the proposition again just to be sure, but I'm not 100% on it.
Well, I think that would be a wicked idea. If I got some more glasses, I definitely would buy noggles and rock them everywhere I went.
I think people really like the Nouns branding, like the noggles being this very obvious thing. Always makes it just is really obvious and really cool, and yeah.
Yeah, I love the branding. Okay, well we're gonna eventually get to how you got involved with Nouns, but let's start with how Counter-Strike. I know you've been playing it for a while. You've talked about this goes back a ways. What are your first memories of Counter-Strike?
So my first memories of Counter-Strike are playing. I bought Half-Life 2, and I was playing Source with a friend, and playing the original Dust. Outside of that, and that was like when I was 13 or 14, I want to say. I feel like it was in middle school. But then in high school, we had computer labs, right? And one of the computer lab monitors was like, well, I'm only going to be here a year. I'm going to make myself the cool lab monitor. And so he found out there were a bunch of us that enjoyed gaming to begin with, and installed Counter-Strike 1.6 on a lot of the computers in his lab, and we would go up and play Counter-Strike. And it led to a whole bunch of other, like, let's go play Source mods. We played Half-Life Deathmatch. We played Day of Defeat. I tried to get people to play Team Fortress, but it didn't really catch on. We played a really weird mod called Science and Industry, which is one that I keep hoping is going to make a comeback, but I don't think is going to. But that was a lot of fun. But we played a lot of Counter Strike.
Counter-Strike in the computer lab, that is a throwback. That's my 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 teachers in I grew up in small town Oregon, so my teachers were not nearly as cool and were not down for that kind of thing. As a matter of fact, I didn't even have a computer until I was 23. I was
Ooh.
yeah, console gamer for a long time, but always eyeballed Counter-Strike from afar. Uh so
Well,
okay,
my
so you
gaming actually started. I played Doom
yes.
before I had Windows. So Doom being shareware, you didn't have to install Windows. You can install DOS. Just
Yep,
type run
MS-DOS.
doom.exe. And one of the more interesting facts I heard about that was Doom had a higher install base than Windows.
Did it actually?
It did. And
I
that's
remember it was
the
like
power of
four big
gaming.
floppy disks.
Hmm. So I got my start early. Uh, I remember playing upstairs in like the room next to my bedroom with my dad, and then my sister came around, and so we had to move all the computers down to the basement, and continuing to play Doom down there. And then I had the LAN before I was 10.
Seriously. Well, that's funny you mentioned the shareware because like I didn't have a computer. Obviously, my parents we had computers in the house. I just gamed on console, but my earliest gaming memories are sitting on my dad's lap watching him play Doom and Doom 2, Return to or like Wolfenstein 3D, Jill of the Jungle, Harry Havoc, all those games. Speaking of, I don't know if you do you remember Jill of the Jungle or Harry Havoc in the shareware?
I don't. Aside from Doom, we played Heretic, and there was another one that I can't remember the name of now. There was because like Heretic was super cool because you went from Doom, where it was just here's your character with a bunch of guns, to Heretic, where here's your character with a bunch of guns but also spells. Um, and then games like Shadow Warrior took inspiration from that. I mean, yeah, it's that Domino's meme, right? Some dude in California starts a company making a game about shooting Nazis, and in 2025, people are playing for millions of dollars in video games.
Well, I mean, those games even led to the earliest of esports where the what I think it was Quake at sometime in 98 or 99, like whatever player it was. I think I want to
Thresh.
say it was like who?
So the original Thresh is often called the first esports competitor. Dude won Doom, popularized WASD, and won a Doom tournament where the prize was John Romero's Lambo.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes.
And he was the one that's playing on WASD when everyone else is using the arrow keys. If you remember Xfire back from the early days, he's the one that created that or founded the company that made that. So we owe a lot to Doom and a lot to Thresh and a lot of where we are today.
Yeah, and John Carmack and John Romero both. I mean,
Hmm.
godfathers of the FPS and pretty much inventing the genre with Wolfenstein and Doom. I know they weren't the first ever FPS, but they were the ones that perfected the FPS, and it was like,
Hmm.
whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if I could be born again, I would be wanting to be anywhere where I could get a job at id, but in between Wolfenstein and Doom,
You
because the math that goes into the original, the build engine that was used for Doom is some of the most mad science crazy stuff that I've ever heard. And it's amazing.
yeah, I'm enjoying the nostalgia of walking down memory lane and thinking about it. Well, because like those games did it, and then this is going to be a nice little segue. Guess what game came out in, I think, 98, 99, that really blew everybody out of the water with what an FPS could be? You might have heard of it. It's a
Did
game
did
called
was it was it
Half-Life.
was it made by GabeN?
It was made by GabeN. He and the crew dominated, nearly sunk the company getting the game made, I believe. Like, I mean, I'm sure you've heard the story of how it got made, or I don't know if you've seen the
Mm-hmm.
documentaries,
Oh,
but
I've seen the documentaries.
yeah, they nearly sank the company to and did not get this game out, and then boom, it got out there, and then a few years later they created Steam, and Counter-Strike saved the mother effing day for Valve.
Maybe a spicy opinion, but if Counter-Strike hadn't saved the day for esports, I wonder if Starcraft would have.
Yeah, yeah, it would have.
I mean, like,
I
it's
mean,
not that big right now, but it's one of those, well, if this hadn't happened, then maybe this would have happened.
isn't it still the national support? Like, I know it's not big in our region or EU anymore, but isn't it pretty big? Like, isn't it the national StarCraft 2 is the national sport of South Korea?
I think it is, but we also had a North American player win something big recently.
Oh, I like that. NA is a region that's struggling, in case you all don't know, out there in the esports land. Not in Call of Duty and Halo. We got those games on lock, but
Well, fighting
you
games
know,
we do okay too.
oh, fighting games as well. Fighting games as well. And fighting games are starting to become less of a meme esport. Not that they ever were to the people that played them, but like to the rest of the gaming community, it was kind of like not taken too seriously. But it's really cool to see like Evo push through those boundaries and like become something really exciting for everyone to watch nowadays. What do you got
Hmm.
for me?
I'm just looking at the Liquipedia for Team Liquid because I thought it would be Team Liquid, but I'm having trouble finding the exact player that played. It would have been Clem, I think, who's actually a French player, so not North America. So you can just cut this part out.
Okay, well, forget it. Well, here, I will say I'm okay with the French because I'm my big reveal here. Big D loves Vitality ever since Cloud9 decided to leave the North America region, and I didn't have that team to root for anymore. I saw that Vitality project back in 2020, and I'm telling you now, with Rops on there, it's Vitality's year here in 2025.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of everything's going to be so interesting. Have you seen the blast bounties being picked already?
No, no, what? Lay it on me. What's going on with it?
All right, so let me pull up. So we had a bunch of them. I think they're all picked. So, all right.
I did
First
see
off,
Imperial FE made it.
yeah, Imperial FE chose Navi as their bounty.
How does that?
Metasport.
What is the bounty system? How does that work?
So it looks like the teams have a bounty based on their ranking when the whole tournament was planned and announced, because everything has to be announced way early with Valve now. Um, and so when everybody's ranking, when Blast was announced, they're like, all right, so here's all the teams that are invited. Here's here's the bounty system. When we get closer to the event, everyone can declare their bounty. So like at the time, Metasport were 32. They chose Vitality as their bounty, but that was the last pick. Fnatic, number 31, chose Team Spirit. Then we've got Bet Boom chose Mouse Sports. M80 chose FaZe. Nine Pandas chose Team Liquid. Fluxo chose Eternal Fire. Imperial FE chose Navi. ENCE chose Falcons, which Falcons are way too high ranked for who they are, but let's see what happens. B8 or Bait chose G2. Wildcard chose Astralis. Namiga chose Furia. MIBR chose FlyQuest. and Gamer Legion chose Pain. Heroic chose 3D Max. Yeah. And Complexity chose Virtus Pro. You can cut this part out. I'm reading off a bunch of names, but
No,
I think
I'm
it's really
interested in
interesting.
this. This listen, laying it down with Big D is raw and unedited. It's just two people having a casual conversation about gaming. So carry on, please. Can you tell me what the bounty like? What does that mean when they pick a bounty? Like if they beat that team, they get a bonus.
I think that's what that means. I'm still figuring it out. They've released a bunch of things, and I've read through some of them, and I've been trying to understand what's going on, and I'm still figuring it out. So I'm sure when the event actually goes live, we'll get plenty of all right, so here's how it works. Here's an infographic, because reading through 10 news posts is too much work.
We don't like reading. We're gamers.
We should like reading more though.
We should, but I see all those books on your bookshelf back there, and that's way too many books. I'd never be able to get through them in my life.
Oh wait, hold on. So this is laying it down. So I should go on the bookshelf and I should lay it down. So give me just a sec here.
Hell yeah. You got that bed. It's looking luxurious back there.
You still hear me? Can you still hear me?
We can hear you. Yes.
All right.
There's a little jump. There's a little jump in mic quality. Everybody, we have switched microphones, but now we are officially laying it down. Floofys and Big D. Yeah, we'll get a nice zoom in there once we switch cameras. This is beautiful. All
I mean,
right.
I don't have
Well,
another camera to switch to. So, okay. So, books over here. First off, this one that I'm poking at right now is the Valve Comics Anthology. This one I have read. Other stuff over here, we've got a bunch of other RPG books. So, I've got Game Masters for Pathfinder, Vampire the Masquerade, Shadowrun, more Pathfinder, Mage the Ascension, Changeling the Dreaming. I like RPGs. And then, yeah, I haven't read all of these for sure. But I've read some of them. Here's Watchmen over here, V for Vendetta. Both are very good. Douglas Adams, we got the More Than Complete Guide to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Oh, the Unix Hater's Handbook. This one was for my dad. It's funny stuff. Yeah, I've read some of these.
well, I like the fact you mentioned Shadowrun as well. Did you ever play Shadowrun for the 360 or PC back in the day?
I've played the PC ones. So there's Shadowrun Returns, there's Shadowrun Hong Kong, and Dragonfall. Those are the three that I've played.
So back in 2006 or 7, there was a Shadowrun game that came out that was just called Shadowrun, but it was a competitive third-person shooter game where it like I don't know how much you've played Deadlock or like are familiar with Deadlock, but Deadlock is the first game to come out 15, 20 or almost 20 years later that is even close to that game. But the cool
Huh.
thing about Shadowplay back in the or Shadowrun back in the day was it was the first game on console and PC that played
Mm-hmm.
crossplay between the two consoles. And so PC players and console players could finally settle that dumb score of, oh, mouse and keyboard so much better than sticks. Now I will say that after 10 years of PC gaming, 12 years of it, but it was a lot of fun back in the day. I highly recommend finding an Xbox 360 or finding a copy of it for Windows now and giving it a try. Of course, I'm sure it's dead, but let's get into some Counter-Strike. Let's get back over to some Counter-Strike here.
Yeah.
So you got started in the computer lab. How long did you play Counter-Strike before you started getting into casting, and then what was the initial thing that got you starting on casting Counter-Strike?
So I've been very much an off and on player, right? I played it for that year that lab instructor was there. He left. I was off and on for Source. The friend that got me into it was in things like Cal, but I never got into those. Um, went off to college, played a bunch of Team Fortress 2, came back from college, Counter-Strike Global Offensive comes out, download that. play, go back into my, all right, I'm going to play this where I'm interested every so often. Never get too deep into it. For reference, I've been silver until like 2021 was where I finally was like, you know what? Let's give this a real honest college try. And I made it up to, I think, Master Guardian 2 before Global Offensive came out. Never got to the black ranks, never got to the badges, but the thing that actually got me into casting was uh, a friend of mine from a lot of the CS that I had played up until that point was like, I want to play ESCA IM. And this was, I think, season 45. And I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to try casting. And so I dive in and I'm like, wow, things move fast sometimes. This is really hard. But I keep at it and I keep at it and I keep at it. And I submit a form to ESCA to join their community casting for ECL. I started doing that. And this was all back in 2023. Uh, dominoes fall and here we are.
So you have a you have a very similar path to me. Just starting for fun, casting some friends in open IM, and then getting into ECL. So how long have you been doing ECL for? Has it been two? Is this going to be coming up on 2 years now for you?
Yep.
That's wild. What what do you how do you feel about this current ECL season coming up with all the shakeups that we're getting?
Well, so this next season, season 49, is going to be the same as 48 and 47, where it's best of twos, and I think we've got 16 teams. And, the biggest shakeups we've got is we've got two teams that have decided to pull out from ECL. And so this season is just going to have a lot of shakeups in terms of who's in. But other than that, season 50 is going to be the big one, and I'm honestly really really looking forward to it. I think that ECL is something that should be shaken up a lot. Um, I think that having the same teams doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it's changed from season to season. Teams have gotten relegated, teams have joined in, but I think this is a good way of getting a lot of fresh faces in the scene because with the rules around how a group of three forms the core of a team, I think a lot of teams will get really shy about picking up new players. And so the only way for us to find new players is for whole new cores to make it into ECL. And
Yeah,
so I think the faster someone can move from something like an open 10 to advanced to ECL, the better.
I like the fact you mentioned that open 10. Do you how do you feel about the like introduction of these new leagues from Face It and ESCA for like open 10 and open 9 and then open?
I think open 9 is excessive. I think that if you really want to compete and you're not above like a Face It level 7, you should try Counter-Strike Combines. And I'm giving this advice. I've never taken it myself. I've never competed in the Counter-Strike Combines. Not because I don't think it'd be fun, but because I put so much of my focus into casting that I want to continue to do that. And I'd rather, if I'm going to compete, I'd rather spend my time getting good enough to be in open properly than competing in combines.
What I don't even know about these combines. Can you tell us and the people back home a little bit more about these?
So I know I have a very surface level view of it. CSC is Counter-Strike Confederation or Combines, where it's like, all right, you're a face at level 1 through 6. You're not going to be going into ESCA. There's no reason for you to do that. You're just going to get stomped all over. this is a way for you to be put against players of hopefully equal skill level, but still enjoy that 5v5 organized Counter-Strike that you're looking for.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, because I think that one of the main things that's hard about Counter Strike and like learning, there's obviously a lot more information and paths to going pro now for a new player, but getting thrown into pugs or like solo queuing or just playing a bunch of Counter Strike doesn't necessarily lead you to being better at Counter Strike because you're not learning how to play with a team. So having that spot where it's like, no, you still work with the pre-made, you're working with people that you've played with before and you have your team. I think that's really cool to offer that kind of spot because yeah, while open is now just the open league, it's still going to have plenty of people that are very strong players and know what they're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really cool. Go check out Combines, check Counter Strike Confederation. Shout out to them,
Yeah.
Confederation. I was gonna ask you something else next, and then the brain does what it does and just lets it slip. Well, okay, we'll just jump random segue. You are an openly gay vegan in the Counter Strike esports space, and you are doing that in a space where that is notoriously non-inclusive. How do you navigate that? And can you talk about just what that experience is like for you?
Um, well, you say openly. I think I was more open about it before November, and I've kind of closed off my Twitter a little bit. I still keep the tags on my stream, but I think there are a few important things. One, I found some really great people that are in my community that are willing to join in for when I'm casting and moderate my chat with me. Uh, I make sure to set very clear ground rules. Be respectful. Don't be any of the, phobics. Uh, Hate will not be tolerated. Here are some words that I think have been turned awful. Don't use those, beyond just slurs. And I just I continue to set very, very clear ground rules in my own chat. Um, as for navigating things like in the game, there's muting that happens. A lot of the time I have to be with someone. There was someone that looked at my Steam profile and was like, "Why are you on Blue Sky? That's where all of the homophobic slur are." And I'm like, "All right, I guess I just mute this team and I play in silence." Like, yeah, I'm not getting the Counter Strike I would like, where I have a friendly group that is communicative and informative and is giving callouts. But at the same time, Counter Strike's still Counter Strike. At the end of the day, I'm playing the game because it's satisfying. And
Yeah,
as far as and like I talk a lot about the gay part because I think that's the part that more people are going to hone in on. Uh,
sure.
as much as I'm going to talk about being vegan, people don't care about it as much as like, oh, you're the random gay guy in the Counter Strike space. Like um when I go to LANs and things, it often leads to me getting food on my own rather than joining the group, which does kind of suck. But I think it is definitely catching on more and more. Was really cool at Frag 18. They did make sure to have one meal where they had vegan stuff. There were uh, buffalo cauliflower and tons of veggies. So I feasted on carrots and celery and all sorts of stuff.
Oh no, we lost him. There he is.
My Discord just crashed. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. I'm gonna walk back over to my computer. For having technical difficulties, I'd rather be sitting here.
Yeah, here, I'm gonna make sure we're gonna. There's just a small pause here. Everybody, stay put in the room. Let me make sure I've got your camera back on over here for this. There, yeah, okay. And this gives me an opportunity to get my water while I'm out here. Perfect. Okay. All right.
I'll just
Carry
stay
on.
over here now.
You were talking about eating. Yeah, the computer couldn't handle you laying it down that hard, huh?
It's true. So I get it's okay. So there's a couple of big pieces of it, and it's just, I mean, if someone's going to be toxic to me to my face, yeah, I'm just going to cut them out. Like, there's no reason to try and stick around people that are going to be like that. And just being very clear with my rules in my own chat.
Yeah, I like that. The mute button is your friend. Listen, Floofies, I go into plenty of pugs or premier games if I'm solo queue, and I just mute everyone in the lobby and just play my game because we know how toxic our community can be. I love our community. I really do. I think they have a great sense of humor about a lot of things, but like our community is a little wild one. So I love the fact that you navigate this space to like make your own safe space because Counter-Strike is not political, period. You either enjoy it or you don't. And
Yeah,
anybody
I
can enjoy
mean,
it.
and I keep that very clear in my own Discord as well. So my Discord has kind of been the slice of the Counter Strike community that has decided, yeah, I really like this vibe and I want to stick around it. And it's been nice.
Well, I know that ESL Impact is, obviously that's another safe space for that's women's Counter Strike, right? But we see that kind of dwindling away right now. Do you think that Impact is? I don't know how familiar you are with the Impact scene, but I'm sure you've seen the news of many different orgs dropping out. Navi being the most recent one to drop the javelins after several years.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, do you think that that is an indication that women's Counter Strike is going away, or that like that kind of space is going away, or do you see like an integration of co-ed Counter Strike starting to happen?
Well, let me tell you about Revel and Mads,
Please,
who was on
please.
laying it down, who's
Yes, she
on
was. I'm so
Roomba
happy
Peak
about this.
for Frag 18. So I think, as with many things, we've kind of got to take it a day at a time, right? I think 2025 is going to be a very telling year if we get co-ed Counter-Strike, or if we get women's Counter-Strike, or if Counter-Strike goes back to just being a boys club. I hope that we get co-ed Counter-Strike. That is my hope. As much as Impact League has been amazing, and I do want it to stick around, I would much rather just have women's teams getting the chance to play against men's teams on a regular basis.
Hard
Because
agree.
I don't think there's any huge difference in men and women when it comes to video gaming. Sure, there are going to be different games that different people gravitate towards, but I don't think that should lead to there being these separated leagues. It's not like traditional sports where, on average, men might be stronger or heavier or bigger. But at the same time, you go and you see things like UFC, and there are women in there that are huge and would kick either of our asses. So it's like, you know, I think a lot of divided leagues, you could point that history back at the ancient Greeks competing naked.
Are you saying we should compete Counter Strike naked?
No comment.
Okay, well, we're gonna take that as a soft yes. We're just gonna glean that out of the no comment,
Okay, no, I'll give a comment then.
and then the sponsors can get tattoo people.
Oh God, no, I'm not getting any. No tattoos. That's gross. Maybe a
You have
spicy
no
take, but
tattoos?
I have no tattoos, and I'm not a big fan of them.
I have a few tattoos, but I
I
don't
mean,
know if you know I have this tattoo here. Hang on.
Do what you
For
want to
the
do
people
with
at
your
home,
own.
I got that. And then, did you know this is on my shoulder?
I did not. But I mean, do what you want to do with your own body. I figured by 30 years old, I would know if I want a tattoo or not. And I think that my own life has been through enough twists and turns that I still don't know what's important enough to put on my own body. So I prefer just leaving it blank.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Tattoos were way cooler when I was younger, and I ran out and got them because my mom told me I shouldn't have any tattoos, so I had to go get some. And I don't regret any of them, but I'm definitely with you. There's times that I'm like, did I actually want that tattoo? You know? Okay, we're gonna segue once again here. You got involved with Nouns after a while. How did you get involved with Nouns? And then we're gonna discuss them as much as possible because they're in a precarious position right now.
Okay.
But how
So
did you get started with them?
early 2024 ECL season, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to dive in and cast as much as possible, which is what I do every ECL season. But I had a lot of opportunities to cast games for Nouns because if you don't know, for the ECL season, for people who are watching from the outside and people who are watching community streams versus main streams, uh, every day that there's going to be Challenger League games, the more established casters cast on the ECL streams, and everything that's not picked up by those streams can get picked up by the community. And on it for some reason, for whatever reason, early 2024, not many people in the community were picking up games. I think you and a lot of other people were more attached to advanced or main teams, and so you were casting their games. And so I had a lot of choice in what to cast, and I just picked up every Nouns game I could get. I thought it was a fun team. I liked the logo. I didn't know much about the team. I didn't know much about the DAO. Uh, and every time I would, Hamtaro1H would come into my chat and gift 5 subs. I was like, cool. That's a good reason to keep casting this team's games. And they would always post me up on their socials. And again, one of the coolest things as I've been getting into casting and I've been getting into streaming is just having somebody else sort of validate what you're doing. And so Nouns were doing that. So I kept casting Nouns games. And then in May, they're like, hey, we want to throw this charity tournament for this player that sadly passed away due to suicide. We want to donate money to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI. And, we want you to help organize it and we want you to cast for it. I'm like, cool. Here are all these casters that I know from 2023 and from early 2024. If I had known you, Big D, I would have put your name down, but I didn't know you well at the time.
Yeah, we had
Know
just
you
met.
better now. Know you better now. So, I'm like, all right, here's all these people. Let's reach out to all of them, get them involved. It was really cool. We had Richard Lewis there. We had Stico, who was I think on Apex at the time. Uh, we had Bach from mostly from Fragadelphia, but he's been around the block. Darth Mike was there. I mean, there were a lot of big names, and it was really really cool to be a part of. And after that, it was the summer break, and then I went back to casting and more Nouns games. And in let's say late October, early November, no, it was earlier than that. No, I think it was November. Peter Pandem approaches me. He's like, "Hey, we've got this new program starting. It's called Flows. You can get paid. Uh, go check it out." And I'm like, "Okay, this is a lot of stuff I'm already doing, and the stuff that I'm not doing is very easy to integrate." So I sign up, and I get accepted, and I'm Nownish. I'm officially Nownish. And it's been kind of a wild ride these past couple of months, just because it's like, all right, so I'm integrating things like, all right, now, you can make me put these on for channel points, or I'll do it for gifted, I guess. I don't know. Uh, I have just a panel to talk about nouns, talk about flows. My bot will always, on a timer, one of the messages is, here's stuff about nouns. If you're interested in looking in further. I've also got on my camera, whenever I'm playing or casting, it has a slider thing that goes through my socials, and one of them is just noggles. And so, just keeping the community up to date about things going on with nouns, because what's interesting about it is the CS community knows about nouns Counter-Strike, but they don't know much about the nouns DAO that funds nouns Counter-Strike. Most of these teams, it's like, I know Wildcard, I know their Amaranth team, I know, maybe they've got some other teams. They've got, I think they picked up a Rainbow Six team, they picked up a Dota 2 team recently, they picked up an Academy team, or like Take Flight. I know this team. I know Saban's the manager. I know that uh you know, they know the team, but the team goes as far as the team. With nouns, it goes a lot farther than that. And part of the reason for picking up an esports team in the first place is to give people reasons to investigate the DAO itself. Obviously, the end game is to get them to buy nouns NFTs. I'm not going to give whether I think that's a good or bad idea. But if you do buy a Nouns NFT, that gives you voting power for future propositions outside of just esports. And they do things like, we want to have cat shelters in China. One of the recent ones was, we want to save an elephant in India, or we want to save multiple elephants. But they also do things like art competitions. And one of the big ones recently was an animation festival. They've had plenty of other teams. Right now, they've got a Pokemon Unite team. They've got a lot of Smash Melee going on. Until recently, they had Dota 2. Maybe they pick up Dota 2 again. I think one of the big challenges with nouns is there's a lot to explain. There's a lot going on, and so when you're explaining to somebody from esports that nouns goes deeper than the team, and you're explaining to someone from the crypto side of things that esports is not just playing video games, and funding different esports is the same as being like, yes, I'd like to pick up a baseball team and a football team and a basketball team. You say that to somebody, normally they're like, how would you ever do that? That's too expensive. And esports are also expensive, but they're not quite as expensive as traditional sports. So you can have that proliferation through, like, all right, Dota 2 and Counter Strike and Valorant and Rainbow Six and all of these different things. And, have all of these different chances for people to be like, well, I really like Nouns the team. Maybe I should look a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I I I I really think it's very cool what Nouns is doing, because you're right. I was on that same path for a while, where I knew of Nouns Counter Strike, and I knew they had a Dota team. Like, I knew a couple of their esports teams, but it wasn't until I started seeing like the proposals, and like actually went to the website and checked it out, and they are doing a lot of really amazing stuff. So definite Nouns plug here with Floofy's episode. I'm not sponsored by Nouns, but Floofy's is definitely noun. Is it nouns-ish or noun-ish?
I call it Nounish. So I don't own a Nouns NFT. Uh, Maybe that changes one day. I don't know for sure. Again, taking it day by day. But I do get paid in crypto from Nouns. So, I am a part of that space.
I like that. Well, and cryptocurrency, we don't have to go too deep into it. It's definitely in an awkward, weird space right now. But Probably the funding of the future, and we're all just going to be sharing credits like that with cryptocurrency, I assume someday.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll take again. We'll see what the future holds. We talked about
One,
Shadowrun earlier. Cyberpunk dystopia. Believe you me, we're already in it.
we really are. It's yeah, I've been sad about watching the world literally burn right now. It's making me very sad. Well, so we won't say too much on that topic then of sadness. Let's get back to the Nouns Counter-Strike team. They are, and I don't, and I feel like this was the same thing for the Dota team. How I don't know how much you've like gotten to talk about them, or like, but just from your vantage point, whether you have insider knowledge or not, um, when a team like Noun, like one of the things that I feel like Noun struggles with is they are consistently the like third or fourth place team or second place team, but they haven't been able to like break through to that other side. Do you think that that's part of a reason that right now their funding's in peril, or that the team is in peril right now? And what do you think a team would have to do to, like, what do you think a team needs to switch up to break through to the other side? There is
So
no right or wrong answer.
it's funny. I don't think the team's quality actually has any bearing on the fact that our recent CS2 proposition failed. I think that it has all of the big reason that the recent Counter Strike proposition failed with Nouns is we kind of mentioned it. NFTs are in the dumpster right now. They're not selling for as much as they did. They are not as popular as they were before, because I think a lot of people realized that if you're investing in something, hopefully that thing should bring value in some way. And the nice thing about Nouns NFTs is they do bring value, and you get to vote on the propositions. You get to have that seat on the board, as it were. Um, so they just passed the proposition for Nouns GG, for the Pokemon Unite, for the Smash Brothers Melee. I think they're trying to look at other esports as well. But then they're like, here, we want hundreds of thousands of dollars for esports, and also hundreds of thousands of dollars for Counter Strike. And you look at that as someone that doesn't know esports, and you're like, didn't we just fund this? What do you mean you need another nearly $700,000 for this team? That's why are we funding one team for $700,000? And like you read through, it's like, oh, it's two teams plus coaches plus support staff. But again, convincing somebody that doesn't know esports, that isn't a part of that world, that this is honestly not expensive in terms of what you're getting out of it, it's an uphill struggle. And uh, I encourage anyone to go and look at the proposition. Uh, if you want to leave a link in the video here, I can. I'll throw it in chat, and you can leave a link like in the description or like in the corner up there. You're able to link things. Uh, that could be the proposal, and you can look at the feedback from the voters. And it boils down into a few different categories. It's this is too expensive, and we just funded esports. It's why does the women's team get paid so much less than the men's? Appears a lot. And there's, I just don't think this follows the Nouns vision. The one big one is that Peter Pandem was actually against us for this vote. And I think his reasoning is some of the best, and that's that the players, they want to focus on the game. They want, and which is understandable. They want to focus on being the best they can possibly be. Unfortunately, with Nouns, you do need to be a bit invested in the Nouns brand, and that's part of why they let the Dota team go. Is the Dota team was just playing Dota, and So if they do let the CS team go as well, it will be because they weren't invested enough. Funnily enough, the women's team, you've got Jess, you've got Lunari, and you've got
Ash.
uh well, I know the names of the players. I'm trying to think. Ontur has been in our calls. Tori is the other one that's been in a lot of the Nouns calls. And so the voters are a lot more willing to fund that because the players are they're letting themselves be in crypto as well.
So with Noun specifically, it definitely has more to do with like the roster for Nouns, the Nouns men's and women's rosters aren't necessarily going anywhere as a roster in the Counter-Strike scene. It's a matter of, are they invested enough in Nouns for Nouns to invest back in them?
Yes. And I think that if we send out another proposition and that proposition fails, then maybe that team has to go to a different org. And we'll see, again, taking it day by day.
It is yeah. It's we're in a very interesting time with esports, with the financing of esports in general. Just it's one of those things. Over the last 10 years, so many people were like, oh my gosh, this is just like free money, you're investing in video games, blah blah blah, look at this is so cool. And then it turns out it's kind of a big money sink where you don't have a lot of return on investment, especially unless you're like one of the top teams in the world winning a bunch of tournaments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
It is really tough. Without the sticker money, a lot of teams end up being unsustainable. And the fact that ranking points, which determine who gets the sticker money, which are now tied to tournament winnings, mean that if your team is not winning tournaments, then that team is not going to be a team for very long. Which
yeah,
sucks.
well,
Like,
it
I would love to see the dream where, people can compete in esports, but it does kind of feel like the way that we're going is that you compete in esports the same way that people have done since the early days, which is you take on a full time job that pays the bills and you compete in esports in your evenings, and that's your life.
yeah, it's always alarming how many players you talk to, even at the highest level, and they still work a full-time job, and like Counter-Strike is just a side thing for them. Like
Mm-hmm.
nobody really has the space to just fully invest in it. And I think that's probably what lends esports in general being kind of a perpetually young person's game, is because young people have all of that time to invest and not have to work, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like things that you're pushing back by being a part of esports, is you're pushing back things like dating or just going out to the movies, or you do miss a lot of life by having esports be your primary focus. But it is part of the dream. It's if you can make it, that is the dream, right? Like,
Sitting around and playing video games all day is the dream, and getting paid for it. Uh, okay, well, I've got two more questions for you here, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. I try to keep these things roughly an hour or so, because I think Counter-Strikers have the attention span for about one pug's worth of video. That's what I assume anyway.
one
I don't know
pug,
how
how
right
about
I
one
am.
round?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we're
All right,
definitely
I just
losing our
clutched this
attention
round.
span.
That's going to be all I have for the game. Bye, guys.
That's God. That's how I am. I get 3Ks in pistol round, and then I go 3 and 12 for the rest of the half. Okay, my question to you though is, you mentioned the sticker money. Do you think that do you think there's something that Valve, or not just, I mean, we're talking Valve because of Counter-Strike, but do you think that there's something that game developers in general could be doing more to invest in esports to help lift the scene up?
That's a very good question. because if we were to change companies a bit, Blizzard uh, tried to be very intentional and very serious business about Overwatch League, and I think that that was not correct. I think that we're going to see if Valve can adapt better than Blizzard can this year, because I think what Blizzard did was they were like, we're going to just try to force the scene to be this, and we're going to keep pushing and keep spending and make sure all of our teams keep pushing and keep spending and see what happens. And I mean, Overwatch is now on Face It, so that's how well they did.
Yeah.
And I think that I like that Valve is coming in and breaking up the partner leagues. I think that gives us. I'm hoping that gives us more chance that there can continue to be shakeups, that there can continue to be fresh faces in the scene. As much as I'm someone that gets nostalgic about the old heads, give me the Boomer Demons, give me, you know, old school NIP or something like that. But also, change is inevitable, except from a vending machine.
Woo, that's good. I like that. Okay, yeah. I have to agree. You're the first person I've talked to that has. So I actually have. We're gonna wedge one more question in before my last question. You're the first person I've talked to that is actually like excited about this VRS system. How do you feel about this VRS system? Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on like what you think can happen with the VRS and Valve kind of breaking up these partner leagues now?
So I think the big thing that's going to happen with the VRS is because everybody's started to we're starting to get a gold rush here of tournament organizers coming back and people trying to all get their foot back in the door. It's like, all right, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, you kind of had your Blast and you had your IEM and maybe your PGL for the majors. Now there's so much more opportunity to get in on the calendar. Right now, Wildcard are playing in Frost and Fire, which I've never heard of before. And like, there's so much opportunity for new tournament organizers to jump in and make their mark. And uh, does it make things a little bit more confusing and a little bit more difficult for those tournament organizers because they have to be Valve compliant now? And if they're not Valve compliant, then no one's going to play their tournament? Sure. But like I said, change is inevitable. And that's not a bad thing. The only bad thing is how you react to change. If you react to change with fear and with by pushing back against the change, then you're going to be left behind. You have to really, and I'm not saying embrace every change, and I'm not saying early adopt every change, but I'm saying don't push back against everything you see. And so that's kind of where I'm at with the VRS. Is I do think that it's going to be rocky at the beginning. We'll see, how the Austin Major looks. We'll see how these first 6 months look, and hopefully, at the other end of 2025, we still have a scene.
I think we will. I'm in full agreement with everything you just said. That it's going to be rocky at first. It's going to be a shakeup, and I think the most vocal people that are against it are the ones who were benefiting from the system prior to this change. But like you said, change is inevitable, and learning and it's inevitable anywhere in life, not just Counter-Strike. Like learning to roll with the punches will only serve to benefit you, your emotional well-being, and your mental health as time goes on, I think. Okay, I've got my last question here, and then you're definitely going to have to come back for another episode so we can talk about Frag and talk about LAN and continue our conversation. But for now, my last question to you is the same question I ask everybody. What kind of general advice do you have for anybody wanting to get either into casting or playing or whatever. What kind of general advice have you got for the young people out there, or for the old people that could benefit from it too?
Start. Just start. The best time to start was yesterday. The second best time is today. The problem is that's not enough to go on. So if you're like, I want to start playing, start playing. Like, don't be afraid to lose rank, because unless you're sitting there with 10,000 pugs played at level 2, you haven't wasted your time. Yes, you might have lost. Yes, you might lose elo. There's going to be a backslide. But at the end of the day, if you keep going, you're going to move forward. That's the same as in playing. That's the same as in casting. And you have to always be consistently keeping an eye on yourself. Don't just play, or don't just cast without looking back at your old VODs. Don't just play without looking back at your old replays. I think if you start doing something now, make sure you're recording, make sure you're keeping track of where you are now, and then look at where you're at in a year. And you'll be surprised at how far you've already come. Our lives are short, but that's just more motivation to start as soon as possible. Don't be afraid of failing. Failing is going to happen. Everybody fails. Everybody fails multiple times on their way to success. And you know what? The other thing to be aware of is you might not succeed. Not everything has to be for everybody. You might start playing and realize, wow, I'm really bouncing off this game. You know, maybe the best place to be is in a different game. Maybe the best place to be is in a different league. Maybe the best place to be is doing something different. You know, you're sitting there trying to be the entry fragger when really you should be sitting back and hopping. Like, try different things, but also just don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to start.
I love that. That's beautiful advice. And I couldn't agree more. All right, well, Floofys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Laying It Down with Big D. I, of course, am your host, Big D, and yeah, well, I look forward to seeing you again. You're going to see Floofys all over the place this year with casting. I'm sure you and I will get some co-casting done sometime this year as well. It's always fun to jump on and do those together. So look out
Do you
for
want me
those.
to throw my links out or something? Or
yeah, throw some plugs in there.
all right, so Twitter, I got Floofys TV. Twitch, I got Floofys. Blue Sky, I got Floofys.bluesky.social. I'm on Warpcast for those of you that are in that space because of Nouns. What else? YouTube, I've got Floofys TV. Faceit, I've got Floofys. ESCA might be dead, but I've still got Floofys. So if you look for Floofys, there's a good chance you'll find me.
All right, beautiful. Well, that is going to be it